Zenara moves through the grand crystal ballroom like a ghost, her once brilliant scales, now dulled with fatigue and despair, the genetic degradation of her species visible in the asymmetrical patterns across her ceremonial robes. Each step feels heavier than the last as she navigates between clusters of diplomats who part before her, some with disgust, others with pity, but none with respect. The Lyraxian Empire once spanned 27 systems, their crystalline technology powering half the galactic arm, their meditation techniques sought by the most advanced species, their art collected across 1,000 worlds. But that was before the collapse, when the central genetic repository was destroyed in what the Council called a tragic accident, but what her father with his dying breath had named sabotage. She catches her reflection in one of the massive quartz columns, her royal crest drooping slightly, the biological indicator of her reproductive viability, showing dangerous decline. According to the royal physicians, she has perhaps 3 lunar cycles before she becomes infertile, like 87% of her species. The diplomatic summit represents a final desperate attempt to secure genetic compatibility, and with it the trading rights that might save her people from extinction. The Lyraxian ambassador, an ancient male with calcified scales, shuffles toward her, his movements labored with age, his memory crystals glowing faintly at his temples. Our sensors have detected negative responses from the Arcturian Velocian and Quantum Collective representatives. He transmits directly to her mind. They find our biochemistry repulsive. Since the 3rd wave of genetic decline, his transmission carries undertones of defeat, a sensation forbidden in royal communication. For 9 centuries, the Council Advisory Committee suggests we attempt contact with the lesser species, perhaps the Methane Brothers or the Silicon Collectors. Zenara straightens her spine, royal training overriding her exhaustion. I will not beg before gas clouds, she responds, the crystal filaments in her headdress brightening momentarily with ancestral pride. We still possess the ancestral genetic archive. Even if we cannot access its deeper layers, her eyes scan the gathered delegations, noticing for the first time a smaller group positioned near the atmospheric adjusters, their location revealing their lower status in galactic hierarchy. They appear solid and strangely uniform, lacking the bioluminescence tentacles or energy fields that mark most advanced species. The ambassador follows her gaze, his sensory filaments curling with distaste. The humans he transmits his disgust, barely contained primitive mammals, barely 2 centuries into space travel. They possess no unified consciousness, limited telepathic ability, and require constant protein consumption. Their digestive processes alone would disqualify them from consideration, even if the Council would recognize such a union, which they would not. Zenara watches the humans with growing curiosity as one of them, a tall male with darkened patches of skin on his face, laughs at something his companion says, the sound carrying across the chamber, causing several crystalline species to vibrate in discomfort. Something about their primitive nature calls to her a biological recognition. She cannot name the royal geneticist, approaches his ceremonial staff, marking his authority, his voice entering her mind directly. Princess, I must advise against even approaching the Earth delegation. Their biology is considered chaotic by Council standards, their immune systems primitively aggressive, their hormonal fluctuations unpredictable. They remain under probationary status within the Federation. The geneticist pauses, his next transmission hesitant, yet the preliminary scans show unusual adaptive capacity. Their cellular structure demonstrates remarkable radiation resistance, and their genetic code contains repair sequences unlike any catalogued species. Zenara feels something she has not experienced in years, hope flickering like a distant star as she studies the humans more carefully, noticing how other species maintain distance from them, whether from fear or disgust, she cannot tell. But in that separation, she sees possibility. Where others see primitives, she begins to see potential. Her royal training included studying thousands of species, but humans have been considered too insignificant to merit more than passing mention. She makes her decision, her scales brightening slightly with renewed purpose. The human male steadies Zenara with strong hands as she stumbles backward from the impact, her royal guard too distant to intervene. The unexpected physical contact sending cascades of sensory data through her crystalline nervous system. Unlike anything she has experienced in diplomatic exchanges, his touch neither revulsive nor painful, but strangely grounding her biological senses, usually overwhelmed by alien biochemistry, instead registering complex but compatible protein structures, the shock momentarily silencing the constant pain of her species' genetic degradation. Sorry about that, the human says, his voice lacking the harmonic overtones of civilized species, yet somehow pleasant in its simplicity. Commander Jack Reynolds, Earth Diplomatic Security. He continues, apparently unaware that direct verbal communication without formal introduction violates 17 different protocols, his strange mouth forming sounds. Rather than projecting thoughts, Lieutenant Chen is gonna kill me for wandering off again. He gestures toward the Earth delegation, where a small female human watches with visible concern. Zenara stares transfixed as her royal implants struggle to categorize the being before her, his genetic structure appearing simultaneously primitive and extraordinarily complex, her crystalline receptors detecting radiation damage in his cellular structure that should have killed him, yet somehow his body has adapted, incorporated the damage, and continued functioning. The royal archives contain nothing suggesting such resilience was possible in carbon-based life forms. Decades of desperate research into compatible species had never suggested humans as candidates, yet her body's response was undeniable. The human shifts uncomfortably under her gaze. Are you all right? He asks, his expression changing in ways her diplomatic training cannot interpret. These humans using facial configurations rather than bioluminescence or chemical signatures to communicate his concern appears genuine. Another violation of diplomatic norms. Nobody shows concern for the dying princess except as political strategy. Forgive me, Commander Reynolds. Zenaro responds, surprised to discover her translator working perfectly with human language structures. My distress is not your concern. She attempts to resume royal bearing despite the whispers now circulating through the chamber as multiple species watch their interaction with growing interest. She notices surveillance drones hovering closer, their crystalline lenses focusing on the unprecedented interaction. Your hand, the human says, pointing to where her blue blood drips onto the polished floor. Should I call someone? He reaches for a pouch at his waist, producing a primitive fabric square, offering it to her without proper sterilization or compatibility protocols. My medkit is back with the delegation, but this should help until Zenara accepts the cloth, their fingers brushing again, sending another wave of compatibility signals through her system. Her royal implants now frantically analyzing the human, calculating genetic viability factors, ordinarily requiring weeks of laboratory study. Her scales involuntarily shifting to a mating receptivity pattern, a deeply embarrassing biological response she cannot control as hope overwhelms royal training. Commander Reynolds, as she begins, her voice breaking with emotion as her diplomatic training battles with desperation. How does your species view interspecies partnership? The human blinks rapidly, his strange eyes focusing more intently on her face. You mean, like the Proxima Accords? He asks, misunderstanding her meaning. Earth is still negotiating full diplomatic status with most council races, but we're open to alliances if that's what you're asking. Diplomatic marriage, she clarifies, forcing herself to maintain eye contact despite the shame burning through her system. The genetic compatibility indicators now flashing urgent alerts visible only to her through her royal implants. Your species and mine, Commander Reynolds. Preliminary scans suggest possibility. Her voice drops as nearby delegates turn toward them with increasing interest, the Vex ambassador signaling to council security. Jack Reynolds looks confused, his expression shifting through multiple configurations before understanding Dawn's weight. His voice lowers, matching her volume. You're asking if humans do arranged marriages with aliens. His biochemical readings spike with what her senses interpret as surprise, mixed with something unidentifiable, a uniquely human emotional cocktail. Not arranged, she clarifies, necessity, a matter of survival. My people. She stops as council guards begin moving through the crowd toward them, that energy weapons powering up. I must speak with your delegation immediately, Commander, under formal protection protocols. Her royal guard, finally noticing the situation, begin moving toward them, as well creating a potential diplomatic incident that could derail the entire summit. Jack instinctively positions himself between Zenara and the approaching security forces, his military training kicking in before diplomatic protocols can override it, his augmented left arm subtly reconfiguring beneath his formal uniform sleeve sensors, mapping the crystal ballroom, identifying 27 exit points, calculating threat assessments from approaching guards, both alien and human, the situation deteriorating rapidly as Lieutenant Chen from Earth Security frantically signals him to disengage. "Everyone just calm down," Jack says, raising his hands in a universal gesture of peace, while keeping his body between the princess and the approaching Vex security drones, whose weapon systems emit the particular frequency his combat implants recognize as charging. "She literally just bumped into me," he explains to the approaching Council security chief, a massive Dorvian whose exoskeleton clicks with disapproval. Diplomatic contact requires prior approval and sterilization protocols, the Dorvian state's mandibles shifting in what Jack's translation software identifies as extreme disapproval. The Lyraxian royal carries 19 restricted genetic compounds, her touch potentially catastrophic for untreated biologicals. "Your diplomatic status is now under review, Commander Reynolds. Step away from the royal." Jack remains motionless, his neural implants detecting Zenara's elevated stress markers. Behind him, her biochemistry fluctuating wildly in patterns that trigger protective responses in his enhanced systems, remnants of the Europa incident modifications that were supposed to be deactivated after his medical discharge. "I'm not detecting any contamination," he responds, keeping his voice steady as Lieutenant Chen and the Earth delegation medical officer pushed through the gathering crowd. "The Lyraxian princess requested assistance. I was providing it under Section 4 of the Diplomatic Protection Protocol." The Earth diplomat, Ambassador Williams, finally reaches them, her expression conveying more to Jack than words. "Could we apologize for any misunderstanding?" she says, smoothly addressing the Council Security Chief. "Commander Reynolds is recently assigned to our delegation and may be unfamiliar with proper contact protocols for royalty." She gestures subtly for Jack to step aside, but his combat systems remain locked in protection mode, the Europa override engaged beyond his conscious control. Ambassador Zenara says, her voice carrying the strange harmonic overtones of Royal Lyraxian speech, "I formally request an emergency consultation with the Earth delegation under Article 7 Emergency Genetic Consultation," her words triggering gasps from nearby diplomats and causing the Dorvian security chief to step back in surprise. The Princess Royal Guard now forming a protective circle, their crystalline armor refracting light in patterns Jack recognizes as defensive formations. "Impossible," the Arcturian ambassador interrupts, floating forward on anti-gravity, feels his vapor form condensing in agitation. "Earth lacks genetic consultation status. Their species is barely classified as sentient under council metrics." He turns toward the gathering council members, his gaseous body swirling with indignation. They lack both technology and understanding to participate in genetic exchanges. The Lyraxian situation, while unfortunate, must follow established protocols. The designated compatible species have already been identified. Designated compatible species who all rejected my request, counters Zenara, her scales flashing with royal authority, triggering recognition patterns in the watching diplomats. Article 7 requires no prior approval when extinction-level genetic degradation is documented. She turns to Ambassador Williams, her next words causing the entire chamber to fall silent. "My medical scans indicate unexpected compatibility with human genomes, specifically with Commander Reynolds. I request formal testing under emergency provisions." Jack feels every eye in the chamber turn toward him, his neural implants struggling to process the implications as his diplomatic earpiece finally reconnects, flooding him with frantic messages from Earth Command. Ambassador Williams' face remains diplomatically neutral, but her eyes communicate volumes of concern. The Lyraxian request unprecedented, potentially changing Earth's position in the galactic hierarchy overnight, for better or worse. Commander Reynolds, the Dorvian security chief, says, "Do you understand what the princess is requesting?" The implications, his mandibles clicking in what Jack's translation software identifies as disbelief with undertones of disgust. The crystalline tears continue falling from Zenara's eyes, each one solidifying into gem-like structures as they hit the polished floor, creating a pattern that Jack recognizes as some form of language, his neural implants struggling to decode the complex molecular structures forming at his feet, the Earth delegation frozen in shock as diplomatic protocols shatter around them with each passing second, the situation becoming more unprecedented. "I have visited 42 worlds," Commander Reynolds Zenara says, her voice carrying across the now silent chamber. "I have undergone genetic compatibility testing with 117 species, followed every protocol, observed every ritual, submitted to every examination." Her voice cracks with emotion, causing the crystals at their feet to pulse with bioluminescent energy. "I have watched my people dwindle from billions to mere thousands, while the Council debates classification protocols and approval processes." Jack feels the weight of the moment, his enhanced senses detecting the reaction of every species in the room, some registering disgust, others curiosity, a few showing fear. As the implications become clear, Ambassador Williams steps forward, attempting to regain control with the situation. "Princess Zenara," she begins, "this request requires consultation with Earth authorities. Diplomatic protocols must be. My world has 17 lunar cycles until complete collapse." Zenara interrupts, rising to her feet, but remaining within the strange connection that has formed between her and Jack, her scales still shimmering with the same pattern that now pulses beneath his skin, where they touch the phenomenon, drawing scientific interest from multiple species in the chamber. 17 cycles before our atmosphere processing crystals fail completely, before the last of our genetic repository degrades beyond recovery, before my entire species becomes a footnote in galactic archives. The human delegation medical officer Dart Reyes pushes forward, scanner in hand. "Commander, your biometrics are showing unusual patterns," she says, examining the bioluminescent response on his skin. "Tissue samples would be required to verify any compatibility claims, but preliminary readings indicate significant." Jack makes a decision, cutting off the doctor with a raised hand, the diplomatic crisis now beyond standard protocols, years of military service having taught him when rules must give way to necessity. "Princess," he says, addressing Zenara directly with a formality that surprises even his colleagues, "you honor Earth with your request. I cannot speak for my government or species, but I am willing to undergo testing to determine if I can help your people." Gasps echo through the chamber as translation systems carry his words to every delegation, present the council representatives, converging in urgent consultation, while security forces from multiple species move into containment positions around the human and Lyraxton groups. Ambassador Williams' face shows professional calm, masking the political calculations Jack knows must be racing through her mind. Incompatible, the Vex ambassador declares physical genetic testing between uncleared species violates 17 different containment protocols, the risk of cross-contamination. "I will accept full responsibility," Zenara interrupts, her royal authority silencing even the council representatives. The Lyraxian genetic crisis has been documented for 30 cycles, while council deliberations continue without resolution. She turns to Jack, her eyes holding his. "I do not ask this lightly, Commander. The response your biology triggered is unprecedented. In all our testing, something no simulation predicted." Jack feels his enhanced systems continue to react to her proximity, the strange connection growing stronger by the moment, the bioluminescent pattern spreading further across his skin, visible now, even through his uniform. The medical team frantically taking readings as Earth's security forms a protective perimeter around them. "I'm guessing this is normal," he says, gesturing to the glowing pattern, a hint of the humor that had kept his squad alive through the horrors of Europa. Ambassador Williams finally steps forward, her diplomatic training overcoming her shock. "Commander Reynolds represents Earth in this matter," she announces formally. "I request a secure medical facility for proper testing under Joint Protocol 7, with representatives from both governments present, but no other species." Her words carefully chosen to establish Earth's authority in the proceedings while preventing council interference. Council Overseer Dax, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate mechanical shell, moves forward with obvious agitation. This request violates established order. He declares the humans lack standing for genetic consultation with royal bloodlines. A Lyraxian crisis, while unfortunate, must follow established procedures the genetic repository has been assigned to. The attack comes without warning as Jack and Zinara flee through the maintenance corridors beneath the summit venue. 3 assassination drones materializing through what appears to be solid wall their phase technology, allowing them to bypass standard security measures. Jack's combat implants screaming warnings as they fire targeted molecular disruptors designed to shred Lyraxian crystalline biology without damaging surrounding architecture. "Get down," Jack shouts, pulling Zinara behind a thermal regulator, his cybernetic arm reconfiguring into defensive mode, revealing modifications far beyond standard military issue, the diplomatic facade falling away as survival instincts take over his enhanced reflexes, allowing him to intercept the first drone with a precision strike that would be impossible for an unmodified human. "These are Proxima Collective hunters," Zinara gasps, her royal guard scattered during the initial evacuation, separated by security barriers that activated during the emergency lockdown. They shouldn't exist. The council banned phase technology after the Regalian massacre. Jack doesn't waste breath responding, his focus narrowing to the immediate threat, the remaining drones adapting their attack pattern based on his defensive capabilities, suggesting an AI far more advanced than officially allowed in council space. He feels Zinara's hand on his shoulder, her touch sending unexpected data through his neural network, the Lyraxian crystals embedded in her palm, somehow connecting directly with his implants. "I can see their programming," she whispers in shock, the connection between them strengthening with each moment, allowing her to access his enhanced vision. While simultaneously sharing her understanding of the technology, they share consciousness through the unexpected link, the sensation disorienting but powerful. "They were waiting for us," Jack realizes, the attack too well coordinated to be opportunistic. "Someone knew we would take this route, which means the Earth delegation has been compromised." His military training, categorizing threats, cataloging escape routes. As the drones prepare for another attack phase, "They weren't expecting me to have these upgrades, though the Europa modifications giving him capabilities no diplomatic security officer should possess." Zinara stares at him with new understanding, the genetic compatibility suddenly making more sense. "The Europa incident," she says, recognition dawning in her crystalline eyes. "You were there when the colony encountered the crystal entity. The records were classified, but rumors spread through council space." Her voice drops to a whisper. "Humans were forbidden from utilizing the technology of the entity after the incident." "No time to explain," Jack responds, as the drones regroup their weapons, recalibrating to target his specific biology, the connection between him and Zinara growing stronger by the second, creating a feedback loop of shared awareness and abilities. "We need to reach your ship. Can you pilot us off-world?" "The council will declare us fugitives," she warns, even as she accesses his combat systems through their link, her royal training, including emergency protocols for extraction scenarios. "They may revoke Earth's provisional membership, brand your entire species as outlaws." Jack manages a grim smile as he calculates their next move. "We're already outlaws, princess." The moment those drones appeared, the diplomatic option vanished. "Someone powerful wants both of us dead, which means we're onto something bigger than your genetic crisis." He reaches for her hand, strengthening their strange connection as the maintenance tunnel lights flicker, indicating more security systems coming online. "You're getting data from my implants. Can you access the station schematics? Find us a route to the docking bays." Zinara closes her eyes, her consciousness flowing through the unexpected neural link, the station systems responding to her royal access codes, while Jack's military implants provide encryption-breaking capabilities. Neither of them should possess the combination, creating something new and unprecedented. "I see a path through the tertiary cooling systems," she confirms, but security forces are converging from multiple directions. Both council and wait, her eyes snap open in alarm. "Earth forces as well. Your government has issued capture orders designating you as compromised by unknown alien technology." Not surprised, Jack responds with grim acceptance. His enhanced systems continuing to monitor the approaching drones. Ambassador Williams always prioritized Earth's counsel, standing over individual lives. Even during the Europa evacuation, he grabs a maintenance panel, ripping it free with his cybernetic arm, revealing a narrow service tunnel ahead of them. Either way, there's no going back, princess. You still sure I'm the human you want to beg to marry you? The stolen shuttle shudders violently as they break free of the station gravity, warning indicators flashing across the crystalline control surfaces. Jack watches in fascination as Zenara interfaces directly with the ship, her scaled fingers merging with the navigation crystal, the vessel's systems responding to her royal genetic signature. Like a living extension of her body, the pursuing council vessels dropping behind as their stolen craft performs maneuvers that should be impossible for its design specifications. The nanites are evolving, Zenara says, her voice strained as she splits her attention between piloting and monitoring the microscopic battle raging in her bloodstream. I can feel them attempting to rewrite my reproductive coding. She winces visibly as a particularly aggressive wave of pain washes through her, the bioluminescent patterns across her scales flickering erratically. Your biology is triggering emergency protocols they were never designed to encounter. Jack studies the medical readouts, his military implants, translating the Lyraxian biological data into terms he can understand. These were deliberately programmed. He realizes anger building as he comprehends the implications, not safety protocols, but control mechanisms. Someone engineered these to activate if you attempted reproduction with an unapproved species. The level of sophisticated genetic tampering, revealing a deliberate effort to control Lyraxian bloodlines. Zenara nods grimly as she adjusts their course toward the outer system, the cosmic storm front approaching faster than predicted, navigation becoming increasingly difficult. Every royal bloodline carries them, she explains, implanted at birth. We were told they were protective measures to prevent genetic contamination, but I suspected they were more his proximity causing the nanites to become increasingly aggressive, as if his very existence threatens their programming. Jack accesses the shuttle's limited medical systems through his neural interface. It's not enough to counter this level of biotechnology. He admits his military training, including specialized knowledge of counter-nanite protocols from the Europa incident, none of which would be sufficient against this advanced attack. If we can't neutralize them, how long? 3 days, perhaps 4, she answers with royal stoicism, her lifetime of diplomatic training allowing her to maintain composure despite knowing her death approaches. The shuttle warning systems suddenly blaring as the first tendrils of the cosmic storm engulf them. She grips the controls, her consciousness fully merged with the ship navigation crystal, forcing it to compensate for the increasingly turbulent space. We need to land soon. The shuttle's shields cannot withstand direct exposure to the storm's radiation bands. The nearest system shows no council outposts, Jack notes, examining the navigational data, but also no developed civilization, the scans showing a single habitable planet with ruins, but no active technology. Might give us time to figure something out before they're able to track us. Zenara's eyes widen as she examines the coordinates, her scaled hands trembling slightly. The ancient archives mention this system, she whispers, accessing restricted data through her royal implants. Forbidden zone, quarantined after the sundering, no council ship committed within the gravity well under penalty of immediate execution. Sounds perfect, Jack says with grim humor, his combat training, recognizing that desperate situations require desperate measures. Whatever got this place quarantined can't be worse than what we're facing. His neural implants monitoring the pursuing council vessels, their weapon systems coming online as they prepare to fire, rather than allow them to reach the forbidden zone. The shuttle plunges into the planet's atmosphere, alarms screaming as shields fail, systems overloading under the strain of atmospheric entry and cosmic storm interference. Jack braces himself, securing Zenara as best he can, her consciousness still partially merged with the failing ship systems. The crash inevitable, but survivable if they maintain partial control. In the final moments before impact, Zenara turns to him, her crystalline eyes reflecting the atmospheric fire surrounding their vessel. These ruins, she says with sudden clarity, they're not just any ruins, they match both Lyraxian architectural signatures. And she pauses, examining data flooding through her royal implants, ancient human structures, the patterns unmistakable but impossible according to all known galactic history. The impact comes harder than expected, Jack's enhanced body absorbing much of the force, protecting Zenara as the shuttle carves a burning path through dense vegetation, finally coming to rest at the edge of what appears to be a massive temple complex constructed of materials matching both Earthstone and Lyraxian crystal, the impossible combination, suggesting answers to questions they had only just begun to ask. The temple walls pulse with faint bioluminescence as Jack and Zenara venture deeper into the ancient complex, her condition deteriorating, the nanites in her bloodstream becoming increasingly aggressive with each passing hour. Jack supports her weight, his enhanced strength compensating for her weakening state, his military implants scanning the surroundings for threats while simultaneously monitoring her vital signs. These symbols, Jack says, tracing patterns on the wall that appear to be a hybrid of Sanskrit and Lyraxian royal script, they match writing found in the oldest human archaeological sites on Earth, predating our recorded civilization by thousands of years. How is this possible? According to galactic records, humans and Lyraxians never had contact before the Council discovered Earth 2 centuries ago. Zenara touches the wall, her scales resonating with the crystalline components embedded in the stone, the connection sending cascades of information through their shared neural link. I'm accessing data, she whispers as ancient systems recognize her royal genetic signature, responding to her presence after millennia of dormancy. This was a genetic archive, a repository of shared knowledge. Her eyes widen as information floods her consciousness, the sundering it was natural. Jack steadies her as another wave of pain racks her body, the nanites attacking with renewed vigor, as if the temple itself triggers emergency protocols in their programming. His neural implants capturing fragments of the data she receives, creating a mosaic of historical images, too fragmented to fully comprehend something deliberately separated us. He realizes humans and Lyraxians, we weren't always different species. The chamber ahead illuminates as they approach massive crystal columns arranged in a perfect circle surrounding a central platform, the architecture impossibly combining elements that shouldn't exist together. Earth granite seamlessly fused with Lyraxian crystal, the technology both familiar and alien to them. Both Zenara gasps, recognizing components that echo the most sacred temples on her homeworld, while Jack sees parallels to the mysterious ruins discovered beneath Earth's oldest cities, technology humanity had dismissed as mythological. I understand now, Zenara says, her voice strengthening despite her physical weakness. The royal gene lines were engineered specifically with Locke's genetic barriers, designed to prevent reconnection. Her hands tremble as she places her palm against a crystal interface that rises from the central platform. The secrets of our shared past. We were one species, once before the third race separated us, engineered our divergent evolution, created the Council to keep us apart. Jack accesses his military databases, the classified files from the Europa incident, suddenly making new sense. The crystal entity, it wasn't alien at all. Was it came from here? His enhanced systems, retrieving deeply buried memories of the encounter that had left him forever changed. It recognized something in human DNA, something the military scientists couldn't identify but exploited anyway, leaving him with modifications that shouldn't work but somehow integrated perfectly with his genetic structure. We were too powerful together, Zenara confirms, as the central platform fully activates, projecting holographic data throughout the chamber. The evolutionary divergence was forced upon us. The third race feared what we could become, their genetic tampering, creating the incompatibilities that now separate all Council species, a deliberate effort to prevent any one species from developing certain capabilities. The Council itself founded to maintain these separations under the guise of peace. A warning klaxon suddenly echoes through the chamber as orbital sensors detect approaching vessels. Zenara accesses the ancient defense systems through her connection to the temple, her strength fading but determination unwavering. They found us faster than expected, she says. Council battlecruisers, dispatching landing parties. The automated defenses won't hold them for long. Jack examines the central platform, his Europa enhancements interfacing with the ancient technology in ways that should be impossible, the crystal pulsing in response to his touch, as if recognizing something in his modified DNA. There's a pattern here, he says, understanding dawning, as his military code-breaking algorithms decrypt the ancient data, not just historical records, but instructions of procedure for something the third race tried to prevent. Specific genetic sequences that, when combined, the genetic keys. Inara whispers, hope rekindling in her crystalline eyes as she recognizes the pattern. This is just history, it's a cure, a way to reverse engineer what was done to separate our species, to neutralize the nanites. Her royal bloodline was engineered with this failsafe embedded within it, dormant until the correct human genetic pattern could unlock it. She turns to Jack with sudden understanding. You're not just compatible, you're the key. Explosions rock the temple complex as council forces breach the outer defenses. Jack works frantically at the ancient control panel, his enhanced systems processing the genetic algorithms at speeds no unmodified human could achieve, while Zanara channels her remaining strength into maintaining the temple's defensive shields, buying them precious time. Her royal bloodline allowing her access to systems dormant for millennia. They never told us about human adaptability, did they? Jack says as he completes another sequence, watching as the temple systems analyze his modified DNA. The changes from the Europa incident integrating with the ancient technology in ways that shouldn't be possible. If the council feared our species reuniting, they certainly wouldn't advertise that humans might be the key. Zanara manages a weak smile despite the pain racking her body. The nanites now attacking her vital systems, as if sensing their impending neutralization. Humans were always classified as a primitive species, denied access to advanced genetic science, kept isolated for generations. She winces as another wave of agony courses through her. The council deliberately sabotaged your development. Each time humanity approached critical technological thresholds, mysterious setbacks would occur. Jack sees the truth in the ancient records now displayed across the chamber walls, evidence of systematic interference in human development, spanning thousands of years, the third race operating through council proxies, ensuring humanity remained separated from their Lyraxian counterparts. Is military training, recognizing the patterns of deliberate containment tactics so similar to those Earth governments used against potentially disruptive populations. A massive tremor shakes the complex as something heavy impacts the surface above a council pulse cannon. By the sound, Jack recognizes a familiar resonance signature from his combat experience. They aren't here to capture us anymore. He realizes they're here to obliterate any evidence of this place. Complete purge protocol, his enhanced systems, warn tracing energy buildups consistent with planet cracker technology. We're out of time, Zanara whispers as the central platform begins to glow, her connection to the system strengthening as the genetic algorithms align with her royal bloodline, the ancient machinery recognizing the combined patterns of their DNA. The process is ready, but the broadcast system is damaged. She looks at Jack with desperate intensity. We can't transmit the cure to my people. The temple transmitter was destroyed in the crash. Jack examines the system, his military enhancements, offering unexpected solutions. We don't need their transmitter. His neural implants interface directly with the ancient technology, creating connections that bridge millennia of technological divergence. I can route it through my combat uplink. The Europa modifications included emergency broadcast capabilities designed to penetrate any known jamming technology. Another explosion rocks the chamber, closer this time as council forces converge on their position. Jack can hear the distinctive sound of Vex phase troopers materializing in the outer corridors, their weapons' energy signatures registering on his tactical display, his enhanced body flooding with combat stimulants as battle reflexes activate. Do it now, Zanara urges, her strength failing the nanites in final aggressive surge. As if sensing their imminent defeat, the chamber defenses won't hold much longer. Her hands grip the crystal interface, her scales now dull and flaking as the microscopic assassins ravage her cellular structure in one desperate final assault. Jack makes the connection his cybernetic arm, reconfiguring to interface directly with the ancient crystal technology pane searing through his nervous system. As the genetic cure uploads into his neural network, the information far more complex than his systems were designed to process his military implants overclocking to compensate, risking permanent damage. The data transfer accelerates exponentially as Jack's enhanced biology adapts to process the human capacity for biological evolution that the Council had feared, demonstrating itself in real time, his cells reconfiguring to accommodate the massive information stream, the genetic sequence that could save the Lyraxian people, flowing through him, the human conduit, the unexpected bridge between separated species. Through their neural link, Jack feels Zenara's consciousness weakening, her life force dimming as the nanites execute their final protocol, the princess fighting to maintain her connection to the temple systems long enough to complete the transfer, her royal training, allowing her to compartmentalize the pain, focusing entirely on preserving her people's future, even as her own slips away, the genetic cure nearly complete as council forces breach the inner chamber door. 6 months after the events at the temple, Jack stands before the United Nations General Assembly, his appearance dramatically altered, the genetic transformation, now complete, his skin bearing luminescent patterns that pulse with his heartbeat, the crystalline structures integrated with his human biology, visible evidence of what the Council had feared for millennia. Ambassador Williams watches from the sidelines, her political calculations having shifted as Earth finds itself at the center of a galactic revolution. The evidence is irrefutable. Jack continues the holographic display behind him, showing genetic patterns that match across 17 supposedly unrelated species, all descendants of the original human Lyraxian genome, deliberately fragmented by the third race. Billions of your genetic cousins, spread across the galaxy, kept separate by artificial barriers engineered specifically to prevent what we now call integration potential. His enhanced voice carrying to the massive crowd gathered outside the UN building where humans stand alongside Lyraxian refugees, their combined communities, already demonstrating the remarkable synergistic abilities that emerge when their complementary genetics reconnect. Zenara steps forward, her royal regalia now incorporating elements of Earth, design, her scales gleaming with renewed health after surviving the nanite purge through the genetic cure, the two of them now representing something entirely new, beyond either human or Lyraxian. The Council attempted genocide to prevent this revelation. She adds the harmonics perfectly attuned to complement Jack's voice, the two speaking as one entity while maintaining their individual identities, the conspiracy spanning thousands of years, designed specifically to prevent our species from discovering our shared heritage and the abilities that emerge when we reconnect. Screens throughout the chamber show footage from across Earth and the 7 Lyraxian colonies, now unified under the new Convergence Charter. Human scientists working alongside Lyraxian crystal specialists, developing technologies that bypass conventional limits of physics, the genetic complementarity, unlocking mental and physical capabilities suppressed throughout their separated evolution. Children born of mixed heritage, demonstrating abilities that the Council had feared for millennia, their natural capacity to manipulate fundamental forces through the unique resonance patterns of their combined DNA. The Council's Supreme Chamber declared war on Earth yesterday. Jack continues without emotional inflection, stating simple fact: 76 worlds have already withdrawn from Council authority in response, refusing to participate in what they now recognize as millennia of manipulation. 17 previously hostile species have requested diplomatic relations with Earth, offering alliance against Council aggression as the truth spreads through subspace communications that cannot be jammed or censored. The foundations of galactic order shifting with each passing day. Zenara activates the final holographic display, showing the temple archive's complete historical record, now accessible to all, revealing how the third race created the Council, specifically to maintain genetic separation between potentially compatible species, not for protection or peaceful cooperation, But to prevent the evolution of abilities, they could not control their own species, long extinct yet their manipulative systems, continuing to enforce artificial barriers between worlds that should have been allies. We offer a different path, she says. The transformation of her royal line having activated dormant genetic sequences, allowing her to project empathic resonance that cuts through political posturing, reaching the emotional core of every person. Present humans and Lyraxians together, not as separate species, but as the reunited branches of one evolutionary tree. The chamber erupts in sound as Earth votes unanimously to ratify the Convergence Charter, accepting Lyraxian refugees as full citizens, acknowledging their shared heritage, and standing together against Council attempts to enforce separation. The union of Jack and Zenara, now representing not merely a diplomatic marriage or genetic compatibility, but the physical embodiment of what both species were always meant to become. The transformation spreading through contact as dormant genes activate in both populations their shared consciousness model, allowing instant communication across vast distances. The abilities the third race had feared now emerging as tools for connection rather than weapons. Beyond the chamber, the stars themselves seem to pulse in response as ancient systems dormant for millennia reactivate across the galaxy, recognizing the genetic signatures of the reunited species networks designed by their common ancestors before the forced separation. Coming online as humanity embraces its cosmic heritage, what began with a desperate princess begging the supposedly primitive human, now culminating in the awakening of potential locked away for countless generations. The rejected finally becoming the catalysts for universal transformation.